There's lots of people out there, as I said in the previous video, that are on the sidelines waiting for these things to change. And you know, the light bulb can and will and may go off in some of these small countries and some of these politicians and people in charge to realize that, look, this isn't helping anybody. This isn't helping our economy. It isn't helping the businesses. It's not helping the country. It's not helping the people. There's an avalanche of people that will not travel if they have to be extorted into something.
I just like to give a little insight, what it's like from an insider view, and you can tell, people say buy what's in season. It's like, you can tell what's in season by the size of the pile. And so when the piles start getting smaller, it's not in season. So like we were watching a video last night. Guy in Spain goes to Florida to visit his son, and he sees these like bag of 10 oranges or 10 peaches for $10. And here, this is what's in season. If it's in season, then it's $1. And it's like the lady the other day asked me, I bought some stuff from her, and then she said, well, why don't you buy some of these other things too? And I said, well, the piles are too small. And it just stunned her from a foreigner saying that, because you're not supposed to know that. This is all one pile. This is not two piles. This is one pile. Okay? So that's how you know what's in season here, is by the size of the pile. Now we have other rules of thumb too that we've shared around here and there.
Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Today we're talking about 3 scams that you may not have seen or heard of before. Now there's a lot of scams out there, like for example, you've heard of the mustard trick, right? I hope you have. And I mean, I could have easily maybe named this video 15 scams to avoid as an expat, and I might make that video because that's a good subject. But these are like the newest and most current and most insidious scams, because these are perpetrated by large everyday companies that people use and trust or want to trust, and institutions. And yes, we've suffered all 3 of these. We've made another video called 10 things that can get you killed in Latin America. You should watch that video if this subject interests you, if you'd like to be careful and that kind of thing. But this is 3 scams that have come up recently and have just thrown us for a loop. It's the kind of major issue that happens in life. For example, you know, maybe you fall for the mustard trip, you're traveling around Europe, somebody squirts mustard, you're busy doing this, you know, oh, what happened? And somebody pickpockets you. Okay, so you lose maybe some electronics, maybe your wallet, some cash. You know, these things are replaceable. The kind of things we're talking about today are the kind of things that really knock out your resolve. I mean, depending on who you are, clearly, when it comes to certain principles, there are those that are just less aware than others and don't realize that they're actually being victimized. And that doesn't make the trespass any less of a trespass, other than you know, with some people, maybe they don't regard it as a trespass, but at some point in time they will eventually come to understand that they were trespassed, and they will regret it. You know, like somebody said in the comments, you know, for those of us that are aware. But it's not all about that. It's also some other things that clearly everyone will know that they're clearly being trespassed, okay? All right, so let's get on with it. So the first thing is, you know that we traveled with Alitalia in Europe, right? And I'm still in contact with them. I'm still going to, I went to their complaint web. They have a complaint website because they never refunded a cent. And so interestingly, I want to tell you that they now have a complaint website, right? And so you write out your complaint and you click send, and what did they do? They tell you their answer is to call the 1-800 number on that same web page. That is the complaint website. You got the complaint form, and then it's got a 1-800 in the corner, right there. I mean, you could have just done that, but that's their answer. They're clearly passing the buck, but just to say how things have changed. People ask a lot of times, or they wonder, and they want to find out, should I go to Italy? And I made a video about why I left Italy and why I wouldn't live in Italy and why I wouldn't go back to Italy. Not at this time. I mean, if there was a monumental change, that may change, that attitude may change. But, in the absence of a huge monumental change in the way things are, one of the ways that you can tell is to recognize very subtle issues that are like the things you don't like about back home. For example, they're anti-family, because one of the things we talked about in the past was how much more family-oriented the Latin culture is. And back in the day when I grew up in Italy in the 60s and 70s, it was the same way. I mean, it was the family culture was definitely front and center. And, your neighbors and everybody was the same way. Not anymore, not anymore. And it plays out in the way institutions treat you. And I've discussed this also in other videos I made about U.S. immigration, how they treat families, married people, marriages, and how they treat them. And that's a little insight that you get, an insider view of how they perceive family values. And you have politicians that say things like family values are important, but then when it comes to the law, they don't put their money where their mouth is. So anyway, in Italy, it's similar, where, for example, with Alitalia, their nifty little scam is that, say you're a family traveling together, and you've got the head of household, the queen of the house, and the amazing children, the sons, the daughters, whatever. You're clearly all a family. You're all traveling together. You bought the tickets together. Clearly, you don't have to sit there and spell it out with an affidavit. Hey, we all live in the same house. You're a family. So what they do is they'll cancel one of your tickets, just one of you, and then that way they can say later that, I'm warning you guys, I'm telling you, later they can say that the rest of the family actually made their own decision not to fly. Isn't that sneaky? What a sneaky little trick by Alitalia. Here's the thing though, they did erroneously cancel the one ticket, but they still haven't refunded even that one, and that's the clue that tells you that they are acting in bad faith and don't really want to refund any of the tickets. And that's what gives you the insight that these people aren't trustworthy and they're just manipulating and scamming you. Basically, that's one of the scams. And it's this kind of treatment that you get, and it's just mind-boggling, because I would never want to do business with Alitalia ever again for the rest of my life, because they're still not, it's been like a year and they still, haven't seen a penny. Scam number 2. This scam is one of those that I mentioned earlier about, depending on, you got two different camps, those that are aware they're being trespassed, and those that aren't aware that they're being trespassed, or they're, for one reason or another, they're not seeing it, but there's clearly plenty of precedent in international historical events that clearly make it clear within their language that it's a trespass. You got Nuremberg principles, things like this. So, but the scam is that you get on the internet and you see these videos. Greece is open for travel. Of course, no such thing. I mean, sure, it's open if you will submit to this and this and this and this. Of course, people in the world, to one degree or another, have seen this kind of behavior from governments and institutions all over the world. And so what you get is you get all of this information out there that's telling you that, but for those of us that are aware, we know that we're being extorted and trespassed, and we will have no such thing. And there's plenty of us out there. It's not just me. I mean, there's lots of people out there, as I said in the previous video, that are on the sidelines waiting for these things to change. And the light bulb can and will and may go off in some of these small countries and some of these politicians and people in charge to realize that, look, this isn't helping anybody. This isn't helping our economy. It isn't helping the businesses. It's not helping the country. It's not helping the people. There's an avalanche of people that will not travel if they have to be extorted into something, extorting and trespassing on their physical person. All right. So, all right, let's move on.
And the third scam is, and you know, I don't want to sit here, as I said, I could go anywhere with this video, all over the place, but I wanted to stick to the top most fundamental issues, is because travel after 2020 has become a very fundamental challenge. So we wanted to report all the newest and latest capers by the institutional people involved. So the third one is this idea that grown adults, now if you were in third grade in elementary school, right, the teacher grades your paperwork, the teacher tells you what's right and wrong, and you know, but when we're adults, it's an established premise that we take responsibility for our own lives. That includes things that we say. And in an environment of freedom, Patrick Henry said, in an environment of liberty, the truth will prevail. Because, you know, when you have the opposite of liberty and you have adults trying to tell other adults how to behave and what they can say, what they can't say, what's correct, what's not correct, you know, then you're getting into a situation where the truth can get kind of swept away and nobody has any clue where it went. It's in hiding. So the idea of free speech, I just didn't want people to think, well, I'll just move to Ecuador, or I'll move to, you know, over here, this country, that country, and they're automatically escaping a loss of free speech back in their country. They have the so-called fact checkers and the loss of free. There's loss of free speech in Ecuador also, especially on social media, and especially on certain social media, starting with an F. And all right, and you take that thought and you extend it further, where there are certain adults that believe that it's okay to default their decision making to other adults, and that's okay for them. And you can apply that to all areas of human rights, not just free speech. I didn't want to limit the conversation to that. For example, like health matters. You know, people have that freedom, that right to make that choice to default. But along the lines, under the umbrella of that conversation, is that everyone has the freedom to make that choice for themselves. And just because some people default, or even a majority default, they can be wrong. Majorities have been wrong most of the time throughout history. That's what human rights are for, to protect the minority opinion. That's what freedom and liberty is all about. Societies all throughout history that have taken away, well, just look at the Roman Empire. You know, they took away all freedoms. They abolished tax evasion, they got rid of crime, and all the communist countries, after they just came out of communism, you go there and you say how safe it is. They eliminated that aspect from society, but they also eliminated freedom. None of the people that are still alive that went through communism want to go back to communism, okay?
All right. Thanks for coming to the channel. Leave us a comment below. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Thanks again for coming to our videos. Have a wonderful day.